Sounds good. All right. Good evening. This is Kelly Gust, broadcasting here on behalf of Innovate Springfield. I'm very excited to be presenting tonight on the topic of From Checkers to Chess, Team Development. We are going to talk a little bit about how to get the most out of your team and really just help you coach to people's strengths and develop their talents in the best way. There's an expression, you wouldn't give all of your employees in your organization the same pair of pants and expect them to wear them. So you shouldn't give them the same style of coaching or development or other types of treatment when you're interacting with your employees. And that's what we're going to talk about. So let's go. To get the most out of this session, feel free to use the chat, or because we are a relatively small group, you can just hit that unmute button and just jump on in and just speak up. There will be a survey to follow here at the end of the session. So if you do get a survey request from Sarah Beth at Innovate Springfield after that session, please respond to that. And we all appreciate that feedback. She appreciates it and I appreciate it. So just a heads up for that. And thank you to Innovate Springfield for inviting me back to speak here again. This is my second session here in the month of April. If we haven't met before, my name is Kelly Gust. I am the co-founder and principal talent consultant at HR Full Circle. I've been in the talent management and HR space, leadership development, assessment, performance coaching, etc. I've worked in that space for about 20 years. I've worked in a number of different industries and done things like learning development, change management, a lot of corporate buzzwords. But really, at the end of the day, for me, it's about helping both individuals and organizations reach their potential. We all want to be the best that we can be. And I love it when I can help either an individual or a team or a company to just level up and aim a little bit higher. So we're going to talk tonight about a tool here called the Predictive Index, my PI style as a captain. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Some of the organizations that I've worked for that have helped shape my perspective here before I started my own business, which I'll talk about in a second. I started my career out in the West Coast at Southern California Edison. Did a lot of work with hiring and matching people to jobs, helping hiring managers to find the best fit in their hiring process. I moved on then to a global organization, Starwood Hotels and Resorts. If you've heard of Sheraton, Westin, W, Law, worked there for about 3 years before tragically in 2008, many of us were let go. And then Starwood now has since been acquired by Marriott. So here locally, I've worked for Hansen and H.D. Smith, and also spent a couple of years at the headquarters of Hot Topic and Torrid out in California before we moved back to the Springfield area about 11 years ago. So got to work in some pretty cool companies that really shaped my perspective. I like to say sometimes, I've seen a little bit of everything here. I feel like when it comes to personnel management and staffing and all kinds of things. So, all right. So my business is called HR Full Circle. I like to say that I help connect your people to your business strategy with just a wide range of solutions. So whether you need help with very tactical services or you need help with more strategic services like we're going to talk about here tonight, give me a call. Hopefully I can help you out, hrfullcircle.com. As we go through here the presentation tonight, I'm going to rely on an assessment product called the Predictive Index. My business, HR Full Circle, we are a PI certified partner. And as we go through the presentation here tonight, I will use that tool as a reference point for talking about personality and work style and team dynamics. Now, I promise not to say whatever tool is your choice. So just kind of keep that in mind, but I will use PI. It's the one that I'm certified in. It's honestly, at this point, it's the only one I'm allowed to talk about since I'm a PI certified partner. If you want to try that tool out for yourself, you can go to tinyurl.com/trypi. It only takes about 10 minutes, and I will remind you of that link later in the presentation. All right, so we'll skip introductions here. We have a kind of a small group, and we're going to rely on the porting here tonight. But I do like to always hear about the challenges that teams are facing. So to kind of set the context here, average managers, and that's a wide range. There's a wide range of managerial skill sets. We like to, especially in the leadership development space, there's a lot of gurus out there who think that they know the perfect recipe for success when it comes to management and leadership. But in reality, people become managers sometimes because they're the one with the longest tenure, or their previous manager left and they're the last person standing. So, there really are a wide, and the same is true for CEOs for that matter. Sometimes someone just has a great idea. Sometimes their parent founded the company and they inherited it. You just never know. So we really want to continue to try to build and increase managerial and leadership skill sets. Average managers play checkers. In checkers, as you know, all the pieces move the same way. They're all the same. Their movements are just on a parallel path. It's very easy to predict the moves in checkers, kind of a beginner type of game, if you will. So in chess, however, each piece has different strengths, different weaknesses. You have to play to think carefully about how that piece moves in relation to how the other pieces on the board will move for your opponent. So it is a different kind of mindset, and good managers over time know how to value those unique abilities, and even the eccentricities. It's a tough word here after 5 p.m. The eccentricities of their employees. They learn how to sort of integrate those moves into a more coordinated strategy. If you're working with someone who's just like you think the same, you talk the same, you both like to eat at the same restaurants, drink the same kind of coffee, you can naturally sort of gel, and you can easily predict. It's more intuitive to work with that person. When the person working across from you is very different than you, it does take a little more conscious thought and deliberation to change your own behavior and interact with them effectively. So, if you're that extroverted manager who likes to talk things out, you may have to resist the urge to, pop in on your people all the time and, hey, what's going on? Can I bother you for a second? Can we think this out, etc. So you may have to kind of book some time maybe to talk privately rather than putting them on the spot. So that's sort of the context of what we're going to talk about today. In any type of work situation, you always have to kind of balance out the work to be done. It's two sides of the same coin here. What is the job that needs to be done? And then who is actually doing the job? So you can look at that from both sides of the coin and really work to try to align your hiring and your people and really create that good match. So it is really truly two sides of the same coin, not trying to fit a square peg in a round hole type of situation. So you really want to try to align that. And that's what we'll spend some time talking about tonight. When you can do that well, you can move beyond the have to curve. When a team or an employee, or an organization, there's certain things that we have to do. You have to show up every day. You have to produce a certain amount of widgets at a certain amount of speed, certain level of quality. But when you like the aspect of the widget production and you like the people that you work with, you're going to work a little harder. You're going to move past the have to curve into the want to curve. I want to stay here. I want to work late. I want to help my teammates. I want to help my boss be successful. So move beyond those bare minimum requirements. When you can, the things that can cause disengagement and kind of drag that curve back down, you can have misalignment between the person and the job itself. You could put, a chess piece on the board in a position where it's just not meant to move that way. It doesn't do that. We can have disengagement from your manager. If you've ever worked for a manager that you dislike, you've had that experience of how, the boss, hey, I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday. That kind of management style, the Office movie reference there, sorry. You for that manager, and that that can drag the energy right out of you. Moving along here, your team can be a force of engagement or disengagement. If you feel like you don't fit in with your team, you don't gel with them, you don't click with them, you don't think like they think, you can really sort of feel like the odd person out. And again, that can drain your energy. And finally, the organizational culture itself can become either an energy boost or an energy bust for you, just depending on how well you align with that culture. So we want to try to keep that energy curve high, keep the want to curve high, and help to build that inclusive environment that gives people, the right size pants. It plays to their skills, it plays to their strengths. Okay, so as we go through here, again, I'm going to refer to the Predictive Index behavioral assessment here. If you want to try that again, it's tinyurl.com/trypi. Sarah Beth may put that in the chat if she would like to do that. I'll just give her a shout. And if not, we'll throw it out in the chat later. So it's a 10-minute assessment. It measures 4 behavioral drives. And what I mean by that is deep down in our psyche, we have human needs. We need to eat, we need water, we need oxygen, and we need the 4 behavioral drives I'm going to talk about here. Those drives create needs in our brain, in our bodies, and are then our behavior that you can observe is a response to those needs. So as an example, I have a drive for food and water that is going to create a need for a sandwich and my bottle of water that I have sitting here. And if you see me drinking that water, that's a way that I'm sufficing that need and meeting that need. Now, conversely, you could see me out at a restaurant eating a sandwich and drinking a cocktail. And you would say, well, she's replenishing her body with food and nutrition. And if you're only observing the behavior, you might think that I'm there because I'm hungry, but I also have a deep-seated behavioral drive to be around people, to socialize with people and to influence people. And I might be at that cafe because there's someone there that I'm meeting who might be a client or a prospect or a friend, and I'm meeting a different need. So if you only observe behavior, you're guessing at what the underlying drives and needs are. If you can measure those drives and needs, then you can sort of predict the behavior. So we're going to kind of try to flip that coin. So the 4 behavioral drives that this tool measures, the first one is called dominance. If you have ever done the predictive index, it's factor A, it's the A dot on the report. We won't get into the reports here too much tonight, because again, this is about concepts and style. It's not about a specific tool. So dominance is the drive to exert your influence on people or events. Some people are just wired to have their say, to put their stamp on things, to make things happen. That is high dominance. Other people, conversely, do not have that drive, and those people will show up as more cooperative, more collaborative, more supportive. The second factor here that we'll talk about is the drive for extroversion. It's the drive for social interaction with other people. And I don't mean you like people, you enjoy a party, you know, that sort of thing. I mean, you have to have it in order to function. It's like oxygen for you. Some people literally cannot do their best work when they're alone in an office by themselves during COVID. Go check on those people, they are not okay. Other people can naturally do their best work when they're alone in a room and they have quiet. So they're just not driven for that need for social interaction. Some people do their best work when they're brainstorming, when they're talking, when they're thinking out loud. And those people we would call more extroverted style. The next factor here, factor C, patience, is the drive for consistency and stability. High patient people have a need to create process, pattern, comfort, predictability, familiarity. These styles are very calming. Conversely, some people don't have a drive for that, and those people show up as more tense, more restless, more pressing, more project-oriented than process-oriented. And then finally, we'll talk about the trait of formality, the drive, behavioral drive of formality, and that's the drive to conform to rules and structures. Some people need a rule book, a playbook. They like a process. They like a deep level of expertise in their functional area where they work. Other people say, rip those shackles off, get your rule book out of here. Your employee handbook is just a suggestion. I read it, I get the gist of it. And those people do not have a drive to conform to rules and structure. You could say they have a drive to create their own set of rules or to disregard the rules actively. So I have a child that does that. So that's sort of some context here, just sort of laying the foundation here for how do we start to use these traits, these different drives and needs to work with our chess pieces on the board. All right, so let's get into that. So drives, needs, and behaviors, again, are high dominance, needs to make an impact. They're independent, they're competitive, they're assertive. Your low dominant individual is more collaborative, more cooperative, more accommodating, more harmony seeking. So you think, close your eyes and think about people that you work with. I'm sure you can think, who are those people that need to feel like they're the decider, that they have control? And who are the people that would prefer not to have to stick their neck out, to support and collaborate with other people's ideas? Now, thinking of those same two people, think about the type of work that they do best. How could you give them more of that work, right? Save the stick your neck out projects for your higher dominant individuals who are more naturally competitive, more naturally assertive, and maybe save your supportive work, your project team member work for people who naturally are aligned that way. Similarly, again, just to kind of recap here, your extroverts are going to prefer to more talk it out. They're people focused, they're outgoing, they're enthusiastic, they're gregarious. Again, close your eyes here and think, What type of work would those people like to do? They're probably good at sales. They're probably good at getting people on the bus if there's a new direction you have to move in. They're influential, they're persuasive. Versus if you need work done that's more introspective, analytical, reflective, you could use those people for that. Okay, I should say use, leverage, deploy. I don't know what the right euphemism is, but put them on the projects where they're going to do their best work. Okay, moving along, high C patience. Again, stability, freedom from changing priorities. They want routine, they want process. So put them on the process-oriented work. They like repetitive type of work. So give that work to them. Your low C people like variety and freedom from repetition. Put them on your special projects that no one else, that maybe no one else wants to do. They're intense, they're fast-paced, they're driving, they're impatient. They like to kind of move from one thing to the next. Okay, and then moving along here, high D formality, needs structure, clarity, freedom from risk of error. If you need a process done in a operationally excellent manner, give it to those individuals. If you need someone to think more outside the box, change agent, give that work to them. So you always kind of be thinking, not like, do I take all of the work and divide it up equally among all of the people, but how can I plug people into where they're going to do their best work? Okay, and if at any point there are questions from anybody, feel free to use the chat here. Okay, so when we're looking at that here, here is an individual who is going to show up as relatively high dominant. Their A dot is kind of over here on the right. They're also relatively high formality. So this person is going to be somewhat competitive, venturesome, comfortable making decisions, comfortable sticking their neck out, and they're going to do that in a very detail-oriented, structured way. The style is a controller type style that wants to get it done. They want to be the one to kind of control how it's done, get it done right, get it done fast. So where are those roles that need, precision execution in your organization? This probably isn't a salesy change agent, real persuasive person, because they are a little bit more on the introverted side. It might take a lot of energy for them to kind of deliver that type of a style. Okay. As we talk about PI styles, and I say kind of it's a high style, it's over here to the right. If you do see some of these graphs in the PowerPoint, and if they're lower amount of that factor, that dot will show up on the left. I'm trying to keep the pattern stuff out of here for the most part and just talk more about concepts. But if you do see those graphs, it's how to interpret that. Okay, so another thing we'll go into here, let's skip a couple slides. So when we look at what might drive this person, that factor D, formality, is the highest. It's the furthest off to the right. So this person is very naturally going to be precise, structured. They want a rule book, they want a playbook. And then their lowest factor, A, is off to the left. Low dominance, the word collaborative is lit up there. They're going to be cooperative, supportive, etc. So once you kind of, again, it's not so much about the dots, but think about these dimensions. Who do you know that fits these traits? Who do you have on your team? Think also, which one are you? If you're the high structured, high formal, process-oriented style that's collaborative and supporting, you might tend to fall into, this is how we do it. And sometimes you can fall into, this is how we've always done it. And change might take a lot of energy for you to really muscle some change through. So know your own style here first and think about where you fall in these different dimensions. Your natural tendency then is to kind of layer that onto your people. And what we want to talk about tonight is how to give them not what you need, but give them what they need, right? It's a golden rule, platinum rule type of thinking. Okay, so, and I feel like some of my hidden slides here are showing up even when I ask them not to. So we'll just click through a couple. So this person is going to be very driven, very high dominance, very independent, very decisive, and very flexible, very fast-paced, very driving. This person is going to be a strategist, very big picture thinking. They're more concerned with the direction that they think we should head than what the rules are, what the process is, what the policy says. So this person is either going to be extremely innovative or a pain in your butt, one of the two. But if you can plug them into the work that they like to do best, you'll find some success. Okay, too many of these. I'm not sure why all my hidden slides are showing up, but we're just going to roll with it. So in checkers to chess. So let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes here of the presentation. Inspiring people to perform and checkers to chess. So I love this quote here because this slide here is going to sound very inspirational. But when we talk about motivation and inspiring people to perform, this quote's kind of the opposite. It's a W. Edwards Deming quote. He's a data scientist and a statistician, psychometrician. And this quote here, you know, we talk about demotivation with people. Were they dead when you hired them, or did you kill them? And this quote comes from an organization he was working in, where they kept talking about, like, we have to cut the dead wood in our organization. We have to, you know, we have to get rid of the dead wood. Well, did you hire dead wood or did you kill the live trees that you brought in? Which one is it? So you want to obviously make sure that not only that you hire the right people, they obviously were alive when you hired them, but that you keep them motivated, you keep them alive. You don't want to suck the energy out of them and literally starve them to death with these behavioral drives that don't get met by you or their job or their team or your organizational culture. So 4 elements here we'll look at: the job, the manager, the team, and the culture. 4 elements that if the person doesn't get these nurtured, will kill them in your organization. And if you've ever been in a job where you've felt demotivated and de-energized, you know how these can impact. If you've ever taken a job that didn't fit your skills, I can think of a time earlier in my career, I've come to just accept it as par for the course now, but where I had to do a big public speaking event. And if you don't like public speaking, you don't like public speaking. And if you have to do that, it takes a lot of energy. And so if you're in a job that's like that, you know that the job itself can kind of start to drain your energy and your motivation. Conversely, then I had a job where, I would describe myself, if you haven't caught on, I'm pretty fast paced. I'm talking fast. I'm using my hands, right? Extroverted behavior. And I was in a job that was very process oriented. On day 3 or 4, in a job that I had once, somebody left a 74-page memo on my desk, like a typed up handwritten, or not typed handwritten, but a typed up like memo that was printed and signed. And I thought, where am I? This is a combination of the job that was going to be my responsibility to like slog through that level of detail, and the culture of that's just how we do things here. So if you've ever been in the wrong job, you know how that feels. Similarly, obviously the manager example, if you've ever worked for a manager that is not your style, you've felt the pain of that, and team and culture. So we'll focus mainly on job, manager, and team here in the next couple of minutes. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at jobs and career paths. So from that sort of checkers to chess perspective, what type of situations might drive changes to a job or create a new job? How might you think about jobs in your organization? Do you have, process-heavy work and you're hiring project-based workers that don't like to do the same thing over and over? And how might other types of factors change the jobs that you have in your organization? I like this example here to kind of put this into context. So given the real sort of high level behavioral drives through Predictive Index that I shared here, here is a medical researcher. This is the job. This job requires a focused, independent worker who is detail oriented and will follow strict research protocols. They must be comfortable with repetitive tasks and likes to work alone. So even if you knew nothing about PI, which you just know enough to be dangerous here from the last couple of slides, is this going to be a good fit here? Here's our person here. They're independent, sociable, driving, very fast-paced, likes to move from project to project, and they're very flexible and adaptable and reliable and really not concerned with a rule book or playbook. So, thumbs up, thumbs down, is this going to be the right person for the job or not? I'm going to go with thumbs down. Absolutely not, right? I want to put my stamp on it. I want to make my own decisions. I want to make my own rules. I want to work with people and I want to work on projects. Here's a repetitive research job. We can actually see this in PI. We can set up a job target. If we're actually going to hire someone, we can create a job target and then overlay our candidate. And here we can see that the target ranges of who we're looking for: a cooperative, collaborative, highly patient, process-oriented, analytical person. Wow, we hired the exact opposite. So the wrong person for the job. So you want to think, you know, not only can I just plug any old person into this job, chess type thinking, but what type of job is this? Is this a job that's going to need to slide across all these different layers of the organization? More like I'm not very good at chess, so I should just abandon this metaphor here before I get too far. But like a bishop, I think, where they're sliding around. They have a lot of ability to move around the board. Or are they more of that sort of pawn worker, where they're going to just take one step at a time, very deliberately, very thoughtfully? What type of worker do you need in the job? So think that through. Apparently, I should dust up on my chess metaphors if I'm going to entitle a presentation "Checkers to Chess." Sarah's laughing at me. Busted. So let's look at the next level here then of inspiring talent through behavior, meeting people at their level. Managers, and you really want to work on developing your managers. So again, that was kind of the focus here. Average managers play chess and treat everyone the same, and in checkers, but in chess, each piece moves in a different way, and you want to try to leverage their skills. So I used the pants metaphor earlier. There's another one too, like you wouldn't give all of your employees the same size shoes or the same style of shoes. You want to give them what they like, what's comfortable for them, and what fits their foot. So put people in a situation where they can thrive. Okay, here's a case study here. I'll give you a second to actually read this rather than read it to you. Radio silence. Give me a little raise hand feature or something when you're a little emoji or a little chat when you've read that. Again, just hit me with a chat or with an emoji when you've read that. Okay, I've got a heart and a thumbs up. All right, let's roll. Okay, so here we have a branch manager and a bank teller. Manager, and just to kind of sum it up for the recording's sake here, manager not super happy with this new bank teller's performance. Sounds like the person's kind of new to the job, gives him some feedback. She thinks, solved it, mic drop, awesome, I'm a good manager. And he walks away thinking, oh God, maybe I should not work here. Maybe I'm having some career second thoughts, buyer's remorse here. So what's at stake in this conversation here? And there's not that many of us, so you're welcome to just chime in or use the chat, but I'd be curious to think what you think is at stake in this conversation. Let my chat. You can unmute or you can chat, either way. There's only a couple of us. Anybody have a thought? I think that the employee's tenure at this organization is at stake. And further, if this manager talks to everyone in the same way, she could have some real turnover issues on her hands. She could be really sort of exporting talent out of the organization. You want managers who are going to import and build and grow talent in your organization, not chase it away. Who's right in this conversation? Anybody have a thought about that? Is the manager always right? Is the employee always right? A little bit of both. Anybody have a thought on that? We know this is a realistic scenario. We do this all the time. Parents do it with their kids all the time too. You give your kids some feedback and think, oh, well, I solved that. the next day they show up and do the same behavior, right? So John is likely to feel very disengaged here. He's likely to feel, I mean, at a very basic level, he's probably not likely to do the job any differently or better because he doesn't really know what to do differently. So cost of turnover is impactful here. Morale, if he shares his feelings with other employees, now the whole team could get brought down. Lots of opportunities here to make some changes. Liz is not really considering the impact of her comments. She's giving John enough detail to know that there's a problem, but not what to do to fix it. And of course, he really sort of internalized those comments. Some personality styles, you get some bad feedback and you just let it bounce off. You think, oh, well, you know, I guess I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Other people will get bad feedback and think, oh my gosh, I better do something differently. I'm about to get fired. I'm going to go home. I better practice. Da, 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 da. There's different ways even that not only do we need to give feedback, but there's different ways, obviously, that people will hear feedback. So you don't want to let those, you know, you want to kind of, again, meet people where they are. So, okay. So let's kind of take this a step further here. So when we look at their styles, Liz's strongest factor, the farthest from the midpoint, is that high dominance. She's going to come in, decide and announce. She's going to have more of a tell style than a sell style. And just like she did in the case study, well, problem solved, I fixed it, mic drop, on to the next thing. So conversely, then John's strongest factor, farthest from the midpoint, is high formality. He wants structure, he wants detail. Liz is a big picture thinker. She's going to think, well, he got the gist of it. I don't need to go into every little detail. And Jen is thinking, what are you talking about? I need more details, right? So it's just two people who are looking at the world from a totally different perspective. So he wants specific knowledge. He wants the rule book. He wants the playbook. If anybody has thoughts what might be better for John to help him out, anybody have thoughts about that? Again, you can use the chat or you can chime in here. What might help John? Anybody have any thoughts about that? I would think maybe things like a training manual or a training video. Tell him how to do these things a little bit better and demonstrate that for him. So he might, you know, he's probably very technically oriented. He doesn't want to make a mistake. He's just going to need a little more detail to warm up to that sort of touchy-feely element of this customer service job here. And someone's chatting it. Yeah, he wants the SOP, which, you know, for customer service might be a little bit difficult, but customer service organizations have gotten really good at creating scripts and role plays and quality assurance feedback, you know, that kind of thing. So he might benefit from having his performance maybe videotaped. That sounds terrifying, but here I am. So you know, we can all do it. But you know, he might benefit from having a call or transaction recorded, that sort of thing. So and what adjustments could Liz make that would be helpful for her? Anybody have any ideas about that? We're small groups, so we're quiet here tonight, but. If I were Liz, I might try to be a little gentler with John, get him to reflect and analyze a little bit more and say, John, why don't you think about some ideas that you could use to improve? What would you want from me? What would help you? Why don't you think about that? We'll talk about it tomorrow. She might want to just be a little gentler in her approach and say, John, you're doing a great job in these areas. However, I think there's some areas where you could improve. Have you seen how so-and-so does it? You know, so you could try some different styles like that. She may also then just want to pair him up with a coach or a mentor or a training manual or some other resource that would help him to really get that level of detail. So she just needs to kind of lighten up a little bit, Liz. Don't need to be such a bossy boss. Be more of a coach, be more of a mentor. Okay, so that's a good example of how we can you know, navigate. And again, there's a couple of hidden slides here. You know, again, if I'm trying to work with John, I might give him that training manual, that partner, that mentor, maybe video training, that sort of thing, and really frame that coaching conversation from what John needs out of the conversation in order to step up and give Liz what she needs. Okay. So it's really, you know, again, here's that metaphor that I was looking for. Managing every employee in the same way is like giving them all the same size shoes. It just doesn't work. You have to meet them where they're at. Sometimes in the name of even what we think fairness is, we're going to just treat everybody the same. We'll take the work, we'll divvy it up. It's your turn, you're up in the queue. But as employees, we have different strengths, different styles, different needs, and we may not want to do those same tasks, or we may want to do them over and over. So it's really about just really learning what people are good at, what drives them, what they need to kind of feed their employee souls at work and meet them at that level. So, but it starts with self-awareness. Who am I and how do I show up